I think we can justifiably put the braking on that if we get it up here. Make it quick. Hey, everybody, it's Tim Miller from the Bulwark. We have some breaking news out of California. The president, I still don't even like saying that, Trump, had a little media gaggle when he arrived in the state. And he made an announcement about what kind of limitations he thinks the government should put on aid to California. It's pretty alarming. Let's watch.
Mr. President, funding to Los Angeles because of its sanctuary city policy?
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the two things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen. I want the water to come down and come down to Los Angeles, and also go out to all the farmland that's barren and dry. You know, they have land that they say is the equivalent of the land in Iowa, which is about as good as there is anywhere on earth. The problem is it's artificial because they artificially stop the water from going onto the land. So I want two things. I want voter ID for the people of California, and they all want it. Right now you don't have voter ID. People want to have voter identification. You want to have proof of citizenship. Ideally, you have one-day voting, but I just want voter ID as a start, and I want the water to be released, and they're going to get a lot of help from the U.S.
We did this. I mean, I've talked with Sam Stein. I talked with Peter Hamby. I talked with Liz Weil. You can go watch all those videos about just like the absurdity of this idea that the issue here is that water is not getting down to Los Angeles. There are big water fights happening in California. There are farmers, who have issues with the way water is managed and it flows through the state. That does not have anything to do with the Santa Ana winds. It does not have anything to do with the fire hydrants or whatever other conspiracy theories there were out there. So, this is a complicated situation. I think that massive natural disasters like this, obviously there's a climate element. There certainly are things that the government could do better to prepare for disasters like this, particularly as they continue to get worse. There are legitimate things that you might want to include in disaster aid packages as far as making a city or a location more, I wanted to say impervious. I don't think LA is ever going to be impervious to the Santa Ana winds, but more protected, from disasters and damage in the future. Like, this isn't any of that. This is just like an old man shouting about something some guy told him about the smelt fish and water. This is not serious policy making, and it is, I think, going to have real negative ramifications if he digs in on this. And then you have this ridiculous, unintelligent policy that you want to attach to disaster aid when it comes to the water. But I guess the least you could say about that is at least it kind of has something to do with the environment and with the way the state manages issues such as this. Adding in voter ID on top of it is unbelievably pernicious. Like, even if you're for voter ID laws, and I have kind of complex views on this, like this notion that you would want to put some random pet issue, you would want to demand a state enact this random pet issue of yours because of your hallucinations about voter fraud. In order for them to get needed aid for people whose houses burned down, whose livelihoods were destroyed, whose businesses were burned down. I mean, this is unprecedented. And the slippery slope of this, is, the potential damage in the future and the potential harm to regular people's lives is incalculable. And again, look, I'm here in Louisiana. I'm home. Hi. We just had the snow out here. We have hurricanes are going to continue to ravage this state on the Gulf Coast, and same with Florida and Alabama and Mississippi. It is inevitable. The hurricanes are getting worse. It is the nature of climate change, but it's also the nature of humans living, this close to the Gulf Coast. And So you could imagine, I put the shoe on the other foot on this. A Democratic governor coming in and saying, well, I'm not going to help you rebuild New Orleans or the Gulf Coast or Tampa um, unless you put in cap and trade, right? Or like, and I guess that's at least related to climate. This would be more akin to them saying, a Democratic president coming in and saying, I don't think that we can rebuild the Mississippi Gulf Coast until Mississippi makes abortion legal up to 20 weeks. Like that is the type of policy that Trump is proposing here, like demanding voter ID in order to get people aid. And what the end result of this is going to be is places not getting aid. Maybe California right now not getting aid. Who knows? There are going to be fights about this on Capitol Hill. There'll be questions about whether Trump will then veto, whether he'll back off of this, whether this is the kind of thing that is just a fleeting fancy. Obviously, Gavin Newsom, I'm sure we'll be hearing from soon, will be pushing back on this. Like this is not the time for this, like for a standoff over a disagreement about the way that we conduct elections, right? Like in the aftermath of one of the worst natural disasters in modern history, in LA's history, like where people are like really and truly suffering, to like play political games like this. Like there is not any precedent for this. There's not any, analogous type situation that I can think of. All of the other times there have been kind of policy disputes about this stuff, it's been related either just to the total money, like the government giving too much money, or to kind of related matters as to how these places should be rebuilt and how the money can be used. And sure, there have been politicians that have acted inappropriately in those kind of discussions and debates, or politicians who have had unwise ideas or whatever. But like, there's been nothing like this, which is you have to deal with the smelt fish and voter ID before we provide the aid necessary to rebuild your community or your home, or to provide assistance for you. I mean, like there are people out there that are, particularly, in the more working class neighborhoods. Some of them are Trump supporters, by the way, but in Altadena and other places where, there are people that need like actual assistance, like not even just rebuilding their house, but how, can you continue to ensure that you have shelter and food and clothes, right? Like all of this stuff, like the government needs to, be a backstop here. And Trump's behavior on this is just appalling. It is just appalling, and it is opening a Pandora's box of disaster-related politicization that I think is going to probably have reverberations for decades, because the amount and degree of disasters that we are going to have are only going to continue to increase. And once you kind of open the door to something like this, it's hard to shut it. So, in short, another big middle finger to you, Donald Trump, for just the unempathetic and stupid and malignant way in which you're dealing with other people's suffering. It's exactly the type of thing that we would have expected, of course. But in this case, it's not just him popping off on his bleats, on his little social media feed. In this case, it's real. It has real ramifications for people that are going through an awful time. So we will continue to monitor this. Like I said, I'm sure we'll be hearing from Newsom and others. So check on back to the feed. Make sure you are subscribed. Tell your pals. We'll see you soon.